Hi everybody, good morning, afternoon or evening, wherever you're watching me from. My name is Sally Roper and I'm coming to you from Ocho in Jamaica, hence the wind. I've got two beautiful windows that look out onto the Caribbean Sea and keep me as cool as they can during these hot summer months. But that's not why we're here. We're here to talk about the two-piece ashtray. I did a video of kiln unloading last week, and several of you sent me back a message saying, could you please show us how to make the two-piece ashtray? So if you want to go back to the video, the last video that I did, you will see the two-piece ashtray in there in a finished form. The one I'm going to show you here is a prototype that I did, and it was the first one I ever made. I made it, showed it to the client, and we both went, like, it's really awful. And there were lots of reasons why it was awful. Anyway, this is it. This is it here. It's way too tall because not only do you need to store cigarette butts and things or whatever in it, it's too difficult to clean. And if you have a container that can hold that many cigarette butts, oh my God, you have a smoking problem. I'm not a smoker, but I don't mind making ashtrays for my friends. So this is what we're going to make. As you can see, it's made of two pieces. Again, I made this center ring way too wide, and I made it almost cylindrical. And so there's a lot wrong with this, but this is the only sample that I have to show you of what my two pieces that we're going to make today are going to look like. We're going to actually throw this one upside down, and we're going to throw this one in this shape. And what I had actually done when I made this one is I just made a bowl. I cut a little hole in it because I hand built this cylindrical cone that's going in the middle, and then I just kind of stuck it in there. So this is solid clay. I now make it in conjunction with the cylinder of this piece, and you'll see exactly what I mean as we move through it. But the construction of it is very, very different. But it is a lot, and funny enough, it's almost harder to make, but it's easier to make, if that makes any sense. This class is not meant for a beginner potter, more intermediate and advanced potter, just because of the skill in making pieces fit together. This one sits on, and the fit is absolutely perfect. Now, when I glaze this one, I now glaze it. I now glaze the entire piece. The reason is I glazed them together, so I didn't put any glaze here, didn't put any glaze here, and I fired the piece like that. Now what I do is I don't glaze the underside of this ring, and then I fully glaze the rest of the piece, and then of course I don't glaze the base. So this is how I fire it in two pieces. But I dry it together, I bisque fire it together, but I glaze fire them separately, okay? So this is an example of what it is that we're gonna make, but we're gonna make it a whole lot better because this is fugly. My apologies. All right, let me move the camera down to my wheel. And we're going to go ahead. I apologize, I'm a Canadian. We apologize for bloody well everything. But anyway, I apologize for any of the noise in the background. There's a bit of bulldozing work going on in the lot just on the other side of my yard. So this is what you're going to need. First of all, you're going to need two pieces of clay. Whoops, oh gosh, that's why. Okay, let me turn the power off. My foot doesn't get trigger happy. Okay. This is 1.6 ounces. This is, 1 pound 6 ounces. This is 1 pound 3 ounces. This is going to make the belly of the pot or the cylinder. This is going to make the lid. For those that are metric in Canada, UK, Australia, anywhere where they're using metric, this is 500 grams and this is 300 grams. We're actually metric in Jamaica, but I grew up my early years in Canada, it was imperial, and then we switched to metric, and there are just still some measurements that I can't shake the imperial. So in my pottery, I use pounds and ounces when I really should be using grams. It's a much more efficient measuring system, but anyway. That's not what we're here for. We're here to make a pot. So these are the two pieces of clay that I have. You're going to need a shrink rule. I have, my clay is B-mix, so this is 12. I'm using the 12% shrink rule. I'm going to make this piece at 12%, 5 inches wide. I'm going to make the bowl 5 inches wide and 3 inches tall. Okay, and I can't tell you what that is in millimeters or centimeters. I'm very sorry. And then you're going to need calipers, because it's important that when we make the base, we're going to measure the width of the base in order to make the underside of the top fit. Okay, because it's going to fit like that. So a caliper is going to be a very important tool in this project. I have a finishing tool, which I will use just to attractively finish the piece as I'm throwing it. I have a needle tool because I'm going to be needing to check the depth of the base of the lid and of the pot, and that's important, especially for the top. And I have my sponge and my throwing rib. So these are the tools that we're going to be using, and I'm going to put them aside or put them in a convenient spot for me to use them as I'm working through this pot. So I don't need this piece yet, so I'm just going to wrap it up in plastic so it doesn't dry out anymore. My clay is reclaimed clay. It's B-Mix 5, and it's a little on the stiff side, but we're just going to go with it. Oh, my bat system, I have SIN, I hope you can read that, HSIN, SIN tools. This is the aluminum bat system that my family bought it for me for Christmas, and I absolutely love it. I have Studio Bat, I have these Masonite 9-inch bats. I don't even use those anymore. I use them on occasion for larger pieces or anything that's going to have a base bigger than 6 inches. But this is just an excellent system. You just I just make my piece and I take it out, and I have several of the inserts. But I really like this. It is a bit on the pricey side, but it's worth every penny. I'm a big fan of Sin and his trimming and throwing tools. It's just fun to watch him throw pots too. Okay, so let me turn this back on. And because I said this is more of an intermediate and advanced class, I don't know that I need to spend the time in teaching you how to center a piece of clay, but I do have to work this piece a little bit because the clay is very stiff. And that's just because it's reclaimed. I let one bit get a little drier than the other, and then I mixed it up with a softer piece, but it's still pretty hard. So it's just going to take me a couple of times coning up and bringing down to just to loosen up the clay and make it a little easier to work with. I use my fingers a lot. As I've gotten older and I developed some tendonitis, which I'm thankfully now over, it's kind of made me change the way I do a few things. There's right ways and wrong ways to center clay, but everybody and every potter is like every golfer in your golf swing. Everybody has their own way of doing it. So I'm not going to tell you the exact way to do it. But you, as I said, you're all medium to advanced potters, so you should know how to do this anyway, and I don't need to tell you. All right, so now what I'm going to do is, because I'm going to be building a cone in the middle, I'm going to just take my finger and I'm going to make a little indent, and this is what I do just to broaden out my clay. Because again, remember, we're going to make a 5-inch cylinder. So, and all I'm doing now is leaving my little finger exactly where it is, and I'm just bending my hand down and flattening out this clay. Okay, and then I can just go back in with my little finger. My little finger's in center, and I can just pull it out a little bit. And I feel a little bump. If feel an air bubble right here. Just get my tool and deal with that right now. Okay. Alrighty. So now what we're going to do is, there's 2 steps to making this cylinder. Now I'm going to start covering this with clay. Right now we're going to make this piece in that one. Remember what I said when I first made this? I made the cylinder and then I made a cone and I attached, and I dropped the cone in and I sealed it up and attached it. That was just so hard. This is just way easier. Okay. Now, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take my finger and I'm just going to go down all the way to the bat. I want my finger to touch the bat. And then I'm going to just draw it open a little bit. And I'm holding that because I don't want to make this I don't want this to get too wide. Okay, now I'm going to take the outside because we're going to be making the wall of the cone. So I'm going to go out about maybe a little more than 1/4 of an inch, and I'm just going to press my finger down. Now, if you can't tell, my hands are supporting each other with my thumbs, because I don't want you to think that I'm doing this, because then it's just going to wobble all over the place. But actually my thumbs are touching and my fingers are really supporting each other, even though it doesn't look like it, but they really are. And then I'm just going to press this down parallel to the opening that I just made. I know you see what I see, a little bit of a wobble. Okay, I'm pressing it down, and I want to take this now to like what you would do for a normal base of a cylinder. And that's going to be about 3/8 of an inch. Okay? Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave this for just a second, and I'm just going to make the base of my cylinder. So I'm just going to draw my hand out. Check the thickness of the bottom. Okay, it's a bit thin. Ooh. Okay. We'll make sure I get it out enough. Okay, we're good. All right, so while I have this excess clay removed, I'm just going to compress the bottom. Now I'm going to address this cone in the middle. So like I said, I've taken this all the way to the base of all the way to the bat. And now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pull this up like it's a cone. Take that down a little bit. Good, because I need that clay in there. There we go. Okay. And we're just going to slide this up. Just like you're throwing a cylinder. It's just a little small cylinder. Now my hands are very large. So my finger takes up the whole inside of this. But anyway, I just grab them just like I'm throwing a cylinder. I want this to go about 2.5 inches tall, because I'm going to be making the outside of the pot 3 inches tall. I want this to be shorter, but it has to be tall enough. It has a function. It's what you're going to snub your cigarette butts out on. Now, funny enough, this is my second try at this video today. The first one, I really didn't like it, so I'm redoing this whole video. But I'm correcting some of the mistakes I made on the first one. So, I want this to be 2.5 inches tall on the inside. This is when I'm going to take my regular size ruler, and I'm just going to measure how long that is. And this is now just a little over 2.5 inches. So this is the height that I want this to be. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to close in the top. So the same way, you use your 3 fingers and just squeeze it in. Okay, I can't get my finger in there. It's just so, as I said, I have large fingers. Not fat fingers, I just have large fingers. I'm a tall woman. And I have very large hands. And all I'm going to do now is I just want to close this in, just squeezing the top very, very carefully, very slowly. You can even take some of the clay from here. Just press in. Equal pressure from all of my points that are touching the clay. So the three things, my thumb, my finger, and this finger, but they're all moving in together. The same pressure, same rate. And then we can seal this off. Okay. Now they've got air trapped inside. So this is where now if I ended up making it too short or pressing it down, I could probably bring it in a little bit just by thinning it out. Kind of making it a cone shape. Can you see that it's a little wider in the bottom than it is at the top? Now, I used to make it this kind of all fun and decorative, and then somebody told me, no, that doesn't work because it's nasty to keep clean and ash and stuff gets stuck in there. So now I make this fairly flat. No, I don't make it fairly flat. I make it flat. And I use my rib tool. And then this is where I can kind of go in and just pretty that up a little bit. Okay. And now we've made that inner cone. Which it's a tricky thing to do, but it is a whole lot easier than the way I made my first one in making a cone and then sticking it in and having to get my fingers in because it was so deep. Oh, it was so hard to make anyway. But at the end of the day, it wasn't functional, so that worked out great. And I got to remake it in a much more efficient form. Okay. So now what we're going to do is we've got the cone made. Now we're going to make the outside of the wall. And what we're going to do is we're going to bring the outside of the wall and we're going to make it probably about a ½ an inch taller than this, which is, remember we made this 2.5 inches tall. So we're making the outer wall 3 inches tall. I lubricate my pot. Oh yeah, I want to measure. So remember I took a measure. So that's going to be the outside of my pot. And probably like all of you who are more advanced potters, you have a pretty good sense of how wide to make your pots. Right now, I'm just thinning out, evening out the thickness of the wall of this before I start to pull and make it taller. That's always the first step of making a cylinder, is to even out the thickness of your wall. Even out that thickness. It doesn't matter how thick you make it, but you just need to even it out. And then you can start pulling your base up. Your walls up. Lubricate them. I stick my finger under here to make a little bit of a groove. And I'm going to grab that clay now with my finger and my inside finger, and I'm going to begin that pull up. Okay, I've hit a dry spot, so I'm going to stop. I've dried out the clay, and if I do that, it's really going to hurt my pot. Check my measurement. Okay. I want to measure the outside of this wall. Okay, so now we can just thin this out a little bit more. Okay. Measure it. Okay, it's gone out a little bit. So I just need to thin it. Shrink it a little bit. 3 points. Hold it where I want it. Let the clay. That's better. Okay. Now this is taller than that. If I use my 12-inch rule, I should have it at 3. Okay, I'm at 2 3/4. So let's just make one more last final pull. bottom here. It doesn't exactly have to be 5 by 3. You can make these smaller. But this is the size that my client wants. And if you noticed, I'm going to give it a little bit of a curve just to make it a little more attractive. Okay. I don't want water to settle on the inside, so I'm using my sponge. And that's it. The bottom piece is made. All right, let me just measure. Okay, perfect. Okay, I'm going to trim off this excess as I do with every pot that I make. I get back in and I'm just going to fix up this curve. I would fix that up when I was trimming it too, but I've gotten to the stage in my skill level that I don't trim a whole lot off anymore because I'm able to make the pot pretty much to the size I want it. Okay, back to there. Okay, I'm going to use my chamois. And I let it run through about 6-7 times. Okay. I don't know if you're seeing what I'm seeing, but I'm seeing a little bit of a... But I shouldn't worry about it so much at this stage because I can always trim it. When it comes to the trimming, just get a little bit more of the last of that moisture out. Okay. So before I cut it off, I'll take it off and I'll show you what this looks like. Okay, so there you have it. Okay, and so now I'm just going to run my wire underneath it. And I'm going to leave it on the bat. I don't want to touch it again because I don't want to misshape it accidentally or whatever. So and that's the beauty about having these little bats and stuff is, there you go. So there you have it. It's good. 3 inches here by 5 inches across. And the cone is at about 2.5 inches. So I'll put that aside. Grab another insert. Okay, and I'm going to grab that other piece of clay that I have, the other ball of clay, and we're going to make the lid. Okay, so this is what we're making. This is what we're making, but we're going to make it this way. Okay, we're going to make it upside down. And this I'm going to show you a nifty way to make this. Yeah, so this is how we're going to throw that piece. As I said, this is my second attempt at the video, and the first one is because I forgot that I had that ugly sample, and I kept saying, I'm so sorry I can't show you what it is that I'm making, and well, I can show you, and I'm having a hard time with this one. So let me just concentrate on getting this centered. Rather than fight it, I'm just going to get rid of it. Okay. That's a lot better. Okay, again, as I said, my clay is stiff. So I'm just going to cone it up and down a couple of times and get it working a little easier, lining all those clay particles up. Okay. So this is where it's important that you take an accurate measurement of the outside of this piece here. So just to show you again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the measurement and I'm going to make my caliper maybe about 1/4 of an inch wider on both sides. Okay? And that, I'll explain why I'm doing that. I don't want this to be a snug fitting lid, but I want it to fit well. So giving it just that little bit of leeway will just give me, well, that's actually the word I'm looking for. It will give me the leeway that I need. So again, I just put my finger in the middle, finding the middle, and I'm just pressing down. This is reclaimed clay, so you're going to see a couple of bubbles. I didn't wedge it as well as I could have. I don't know if you heard them pop. Okay, so this is going to be a bit of an advanced move. It's not really very difficult. It's just the way I choose to do it. There's 2 ways that you can do this. I'll do it my way, and then I'll show you. I'll verbally explain to you another way to do it. Okay, so what's important here is this outside part here is going to be the part that sits on the top of the base. But remember that I've made little cutout grooves. I've used diamond core tools, and I've cut out a little groove so that the cigarette, I'm making it worse. So the cigarette can sit in the little groove there. So we have to make allowance for that. So this part of the pot has to be thicker. So I'm making sure that I'm leaving some good thickness in there as I spread out the clay to make my pot. And again, I'm going to measure. Okay. I'm going to thin this out a little bit. So I'm going to make it thinner here, and I'll explain that in a second. Make it thinner, and as I go out, I can keep it thin, and then when I get to about here, I'm going to leave that little bit thicker than. I just slide across. Now I'm going to raise my finger a little bit and let that clay be thicker. That's going to be good. So I take my needle tool and do a measurement. That's still too thick. Okay, one of the ways I like to thin out my clay is using my knuckle. Okay. Much better. Okay, so now I've got this. As you can see, this is thinner here than it is here, and that's on purpose. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to take my finger, find center, and I'm just going to take it and I'm going to go all the way down to my bat. That's still pretty thick, and that's okay. Feel a bubble. There it is. Okay. That got it. Okay. So now here's the tricky part. So in this one here, I've made this inside cylinder or wall. I've made it straight up, but in fact, I want to make it on an angle like my pinky finger is. And I'm going to leave a hole in the middle, which is going to sit around the whole of this. Okay? I hope you can see that if I got it. Yeah. Okay. So what I'm going to do now is I've created and I've gone down to the bat. What I'm going to do is I'm going to slide my finger underneath, and I'm going to be lifting this clay up from underneath. And I'm going to slide my finger probably to about there. So I'm going to just kind of go in, under, and go to about there. Okay, so here we go. And I'm going to push out in this direction here, just because it's easier for me. And I'm going fairly slowly. You can see it lifting here. I don't want to do this too quickly. But I'm making sure that I'm pressing really hard on my bat. So I'm making sure that I'm lifting the clay up. Okay, I think I got it pretty much to where I want. I got it to about there. Now I can go back in here, and I can, as though I'm doing the wall of a cylinder, it's the same motion. Now, this has to go around this. This is going to poke through. So I want to make sure that I lift this up enough. I'm lifting it up a little bit. And that's probably going to be, too small. The whole, the cone will fit through this hole. But I want to make it wide enough so that when you flick your ashes, they're going to roll down this inner wall, and they're going to fall in and not hit onto that cone. So when I trim it now, I'm going to adjust the size of this. But what I would probably do is just take my needle tool and make it larger. Okay. So now we've got that inner cone. Now we're just going to do a little decorative. We're going to now make this wall here, this part here. And this is again where my calipers come in really important. I want to make my wall there. So here's where I can just go across here, get some of that clay. Now I can measure. I measure a lot when I make these because they have to be exact. Okay, now I can take some of this clay and make that little, well, I'm going to go in with my finger. Sorry, I'm struggling a little bit with that cutout from the bat. That should be okay. Raise this half an inch. No, maybe 3/4 of an inch. Oh, maybe that is an inch. Okay. Okay. Measure it again, make sure. Now remember we made this wider than the inside of the pot. I mean the outside of the pot. And there's one way to check it. I'll take this out. What I can do now, because I haven't wired it off yet, I can turn it upside down and I can just hold it over here and make sure that it fits. And you can't see it, I can. I got lots of room, so I take that back up, and that's going to be a perfect fit. So let me move this, put this back down. And then I'm just going to refine it. So unfortunately I don't have one that I made like yesterday where I can show you how to trim it. I'm going to have to do another video. So I'm going to call this part 1. And I'm just going to tidy up this outer edge now. The more I do now, the less I have to do at the trimming stage, and that's completely an individual preference. I will do more trimming on it. Okay, but that's it. So these are the two pieces that are going to come together. I think I can almost visualize. I think I'm going to put this back in, and I'm just going to raise this a little bit more because I want it to go down about that far. I think I've got it actually pretty good, but anyway, there you go. So this is part 1 of making a 2-piece ashtray. So I want to thank you all very much for joining me. I hope you enjoyed this video. Sorry, let me just angle it. There we go. I hope you enjoyed it on the process of how to make a windproof, I guess is the best way to say it, is a windproof ashtray, which is very much needed here in the Caribbean because it's quite windy, as you can tell by the wind in my hair. Anyway, thank you all very much. I hope you enjoy your day. Look out tomorrow for part 2 of this process as I show you how I trim it. The video won't be very long. It doesn't take a lot of time, but then you'll see how the piece comes together a little bit better. Thank you all for joining me. Have a really wonderful day, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.